Good morning and welcome, HomeschoolToGo students. Today we're going to listen to the story about the land of even and odd with our two characters, Lance and Lori. So get ready, sit up somewhere where you're very comfortable, and open up your imagination so you can start picturing everything that is about to happen in this story. Are you ready? Here we go. Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Lance and a little girl named Lori. They were just about your age. Lance and Lori were the best of friends and loved to play together. Every morning after they had finished breakfast, they would meet beside Lance's barn to plan the day's adventure. Sometimes they would jump and play in the haystack, or they would pretend they were orphans and had to live in Lori's attic. But by far, their favorite thing to do was to play in the grove of trees which grew beside a nearby stream. One day, as Lance was getting dressed, he overheard his older brother talking about a magical land, which could be found by crossing the old stone bridge and following a path of stones. Lance thought that it would be great fun to surprise Lori by taking her to this magical land. So he grabbed 2 fresh blueberry muffins, put them in a sack, and stuffed 2 apples into his pockets and ran off to meet her. Always ready for a surprise adventure, Lori took her snack from Lance and they were off. After they had been walking for some time, they came upon an old stone bridge. Once they were half over the bridge, Lance stopped. For all he could see on the opposite bank was a mass of blackberry bushes. They seemed to have taken over everything in sight. Certainly, didn't seem to be anything magical about them. Thinking that the path must be hidden somehow among the bushes, Lance grabbed Lori's hand and led her to the far side of the bridge. As soon as they stepped off the bridge, the thick tangle of blueberry branches seemed to magically part, and there, in front of them, was a path of shining stones leading through a wood. The children were so excited by this that they immediately began following the path. They hadn't gone too far into the woods when the trail veered off to the left and they found themselves being led into a meadow. The most amazing meadow they had ever seen. Wherever they looked, they saw rabbits and deer and squirrels scampering about. And the flowers and the birds were of every color imaginable. But perhaps the most amazing sight were the trees that ringed the meadow. Instead of green leaves, these trees had leaves of gold that shimmered like jewels in the sunlight. Thinking that this would be a wonderful place to eat their snacks, Lori and Lance sat down on a golden log and looked around them. "Look!" Lori exclaimed. "How strange! Everywhere you look, everything is in pairs. The flowers grow 2 to a stem, all of the trees grow in pairs, and the animals run side by side, 2 at a time. I wonder why." Then, from behind them, 2 little voices answered her in unison.
"Because you are in even land, of course. Here we share everything evenly and no one is ever alone."
Laurie and Lance jumped at the sound of the voices behind them. When they turned around, they saw two children who were dressed alike and had their arms linked together. "Who are you?" said Lance, relaxing a little as he saw the kind smiles on the two children's faces.
I'm Timothy too, and he's Frankie 4,
said the taller of the two boys.
And who might you be?
Lance introduced himself and Laurie, and then asked Timothy to tell them about this strange new place called Evenland. As Timothy and Frankie talked, Laurie and Lance discovered that they were in a land where everything came in 2s or 4s or 6s. Children were always born as twins. Houses had 2 front doors and 2 back doors. The faces of their clocks only had 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12 on them. And the children only had birthdays every 2 years. After hearing about Evenland, Laurie and Lance followed the boys to the edge of the meadow, where there stood an old stone well. "What about this well?" asked Laurie. "There is only one well."
Yes, this is the equal well,
said Frankie.
It is the only single thing in all of Evenland. It is where we throw anything that there is only one of, anything which is left over. For we share everything equally, and if ever there would be something left over, we throw it into the equal well.
Good job. You have made it to the end of the story, or I should say the end of this part of the story. Now, let's talk about the things that have 2s, 4s, 6s, etc. as part of their makeup. Also, think of things we have that would have to be thrown in the well. For example, a unicycle will only have 1 tire. Then, after we talk about these things for a little bit, we can come back here and try to finish the story by imagining what would be like when Laurie and Lance went to Oddland. What do you think they would find there?